everyone, Tina here. I hope your day's going wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I am here for Pretty Pink Posh, and we are going to be creating a card project using some brand new items over at the Pretty Pink Posh shop. I think you are going to fall in love with them. This is called the Winter Foliage. It's a die set that's huge, and you have probably every Christmas foliage you can imagine in here, and there's stitch detail, which I love, and I also love that there's two different styles of pine needles. I think that's super fun. We're going to pair this with the Holiday Sentiments stamp set. I love the stamp set because these are great on their own, but they're also great for as secondary sentiments with a word die. So we're not going to use it with a word die today. We're going to do something a little bit different with this stamp set. So let's go ahead and start by doing a little bit of die cutting. The dies that we're going to be using are both the flowers, the poinsettia flowers, and we're going to die cut out with white cardstock each one of these. And then I have both of the holly leaves. We're going to die cut these out twice. And then we have the little berries. We're going to die cut this out 3 times, and then we have the pine needle. We're going to die cut this out 3 times as well. And we're going to do all of this with white cardstock. We probably have to shift them around to make the best of our space here. Okay, while we're die cutting also, I'm going to take the Stitched Borders 3 die set. We're going to use the ribbon piece here. I love this piece because it has stitch detail on the top and bottom. It really does look like a ribbon. But I'm going to die cut this out twice with white cardstock. So I'm going to run these through my die cut machine, and I will be right back. I went ahead and die cut out all of my flowers and foliage and also my ribbon strips. Here's what I meant with the stitch detail. I think they're really pretty. I'm going to set this off to the side along with my poinsettia flowers. We're going to set these aside too. For the rest of these, we're going to do a little bit of ink blending. And so I have 3 different inks. I have 2 different greens and a brown: Vintage Photo, Rustic Wilderness, and Peeled Paint. And these are Distress Oxide inks. So we're going for a vintage looking card, and I think these are real toned down colors. We're going to start with our holly leaves, and I'm just going to add a little bit of color using my blending tools here, starting with our, I think we're going to go with Peeled Paint on our holly leaves. So let's add a little bit of color here. This is the best thing about adding die cutting with white cardstock. You can use any color of inks that you have. I'm going to go ahead and next take a little bit of Vintage Photo, and I'm going to add a little brown to this. Whenever you do this, I think this just adds a very vintage feel to your cards, a little bit of a warmthness. Let me zoom in a little bit more so you can see. See how warm that makes that look? And I want to do that to the big leaves too. So our holly leaves are all done. And now we'll put these off to the side. I'm going to flip around my mat, and then we're going to do our pine needles. But our pine needles, we're going to use Rustic Wilderness. It's a little bit of a brighter green, or not necessarily a brighter green, just a different color of green. And we will add some ink to our blending tool here. And we're just going to, basically we're just adding a little color. I love these pine needles. I think they are so neat. Some areas are a little bit, have the little white peeking through, and I don't mind that at all. In fact, I like it. And after we have our Rustic Wilderness, we're going to go in with our Vintage Photo once more. And we're just going to go a little bit on the edges, adding some browns. And our pine needles are done. And let me give you a closer look how they look. Pretty, huh? Now we're going to take our berries, and I'm going to just use my Vintage Photo. Again, I'm going for a vintage look, and I'm just coloring these brown. Okay. And so our berries are all good to go. Now when you die cut these out, you can also die cut out the berries to layer on top. But we're going to do something special with this. And I'm going to wipe off my craft mat and then I'll show you what we're going to do. Okay, I'm going to bring back my brown berries to my craft mat. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. Now I'm going to take Nuvo Crystal Drops. This is Morning Dew. Now if you have glossy accents, you can use glossy accents. But I'm using this particular Morning Dew because these drops actually have a little bit more dimension than glossy accents. This actually will hold a shape better. I went ahead and put the Morning Dew on my berries and you can see how more dimensional it is. I think glossy accents will flatten a little bit more. Okay, so I have my Morning Dew as berries, and then I'm going to do something fun. I'm going to go, since I'm going for vintage, I don't want no color on here. So I have some clear glitter. This is like a little chunky glitter, and I'm going to go over the Nuvo drops. To me, this looks like icicles. I'm going to tap off the excess. And then these look like there's little icicles on the berries. And then we have a little bit of dimension too, and it will dry that way. You see how sparkly that is? I'm going to do this. I'm going to put this off to the side and do the rest with my berries. And again, it's really easy to do. I'm going to go ahead and set my needles and my holly leaves off to the side along with my berries. Give that a little bit of chance to dry. And in the meantime, we're going to work on our background. Now, I mentioned that we are going to use our holiday sentiments, but we're going to use this in a different way. I'm going to go ahead and take this out of the package. And then I have a piece of printer paper. This is just regular white printer paper. I'm going to use my paper trimmer and trim it in half. And then I'll take one of the halves and I'm going to trim this to 4 1/4. So now we have two A2 panels. I'm going to take one of my panels and just using my black ink, I'm going to be using my Memento ink because it dries fast. I'm going to open up my stamp set. We're going to leave all of our sentiments on the plastic storage sheet. And what we're going to do next is take our ink. We'll ink up. There's doubled sentiments on top. There's 6 of them. I'm not going to use those. But I'm going to ink up my sentiments. And they're still on the plastic. And then I'm going to take my printer paper, put it at a diagonal, lay it down, and then with my leftover sheet, I'm just going to go over it. When you do this, you want to be careful not to smear your cardstock. Otherwise your sentiments will kind of look funny. So we have a whole bunch of sentiments. Now what we're going to do is ink them up once again. And now we're going to shift the paper so it's at a different angle. Put it down here and we'll just press it down. Like so. We're kind of crisscrossing it, and then we have a couple open areas, so we'll re-ink our sentiments. We'll place it down here. Just cover it up and press. Like so. We have this area left over. And go ahead and add this. And press this down. Like so. And you can basically keep going until you're happy. I'm going to add a little more right here. And then we have a whole bunch of mixed match sentiments on here. Kind of looks funny, but we're going to do something worse. Bear with me. I think the outcomes turns out really nice. Now you can go ahead and wipe this down. I'm just going to use my stamp cleaner and wipe this off. And you can clean it while it's still on the acetate, which is nice. Okay, so we have our background, and this sheet you could probably even use if you wanted to, stamped over on top of this. But we're going to take this A2 panel, put our stamp set off to the side. Now what we're going to do is just crinkle it. I love doing this on vintage cards. I've been doing this. And then we're going to smooth it out after we crinkle it. The back side you can see a little bit more wrinkles. I'm going to bring back my craft mat, and then we're going to take our peeled paint, and I'm going to go around the edges of this panel and lightly go over the middle here. What this is going to do is those creases are going to just pick up the ink more intensely than the rest, like so. After we have this done, I have a little bit of ink left over on my rustic wilderness, and we're going to add a little bit of color here. Like so. And then we're going to take Vintage Photo and go all along the edges with this. And this is going to pick up those creases on the edges and give it a worn look. Okay, after I went around the edges, I'm just lightly going over the middle. And then we have a really fun vintage looking background. The ends want to curl up, but we want them flat. Now what we're going to do is flip this around. We're going to add, you could use your tape runner, but I'm going to add glue because I really want this tacked down to my card base. I have an A2 card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. Now this is going to fit this perfectly. Now when you adhere this, you want to make sure that your sentiments are right side up for the most part. And then you're just going to add it to the corner. Line it up on one side. Kind of press it down. And it looks like a lot of dimension here. I have a little bit of white showing here. I'm going to use my paper trimmer and trim away that. Okay. But there is a lot of dimension, but it's completely flat. Don't you love that? How vintage that looks? Now we're going to take our ribbon strips. I'm about maybe 1 1/4 inches from the left side and 1 1/4 inches up from the right, from the bottom. And I'm going to lightly tack this because I like dimension on my cards, and we're going to put some foam tape behind it. And we're going to take, after I remove the release paper, this is going to go on our card base. I put a foam square in the middle of my largest flower. And then we'll add the smaller. We're going to angle it as if it's almost crisscrossed here. And we're going to, again, flip up those leaves. And then I'll take one more foam square, put it behind the back. This is going to go in the center of our ribbons. Maybe we need to center that a little bit more. Wonderful. I think that looks pretty, but once we add this, it's just going to bring it all together, I think. Now we're going to add some foam squares behind our holly leaves. Okay, we have our holly leaves. And now we're going to add our pine needles. I'm just going to use my tape runner to add these. Next we have our little berries that are not quite dry yet. So I'm going to add a little glue behind here. And then we're going to tuck these under just using my tweezers. Ideally you'd want to wait for this to dry. When I add my little berries here, I want to make sure that these are in the area where there's white just so they stand out. Now we're almost done. Now I don't need to worry about a sentiment because we have the sentiments in the background. I think that just says it all, really. Lastly, we do need some sparkle. So I'm bringing in the brand new ruby red pearls. I think these are so pretty. They're not like a bright red, they're more of a toned down red. And so these will make perfect flower centers. I'm going to go ahead and add a big amount of glue right in the center. And then we're going to go ahead, take our jewel picker upper, and we're going to add all 3 sizes to the center of our flower here. Wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and put these back in the Ziploc. And then that finishes my card project today. A quick and easy vintage style card. I hope you enjoyed my project. I wish you a lovely day. Thank you so much for joining me, and we will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.